Welcome to RELaunch Live Podcast. RELaunch Live Podcast. Talking all things real estate, the strategies that build it, and sharing their own life-changing growth plans. They are two of the most dynamic people in the business with one common goal: to make you rethink, reimagine, and be re-inspired in your life and business. Welcome to the RELaunch Live Podcast with your hosts, Veronica Figueroa and Jeff Lobb.
Hey, welcome everybody.
Welcome.
Hey
guys, how are you?
Oh, good
Welcome guys to RELaunch Live Podcast again. Jeff, another episode where we get to rethink, reimagine, and be re-inspired. And today we have two of my favorite people, Jen and Jason. I always butcher your last name. Catalanotto. Did I get it right?
Yeah.
Catalanotto. You came probably. It sounds like you came straight out of Brooklyn.
Right? They are just two people that I've actually become really good. I want to say like family, just two extremely successful, a husband and wife team out of Tampa, and also now crushing it in Tennessee, right? And just, you know, from not only just an investment portfolio, running a large, a high performance team, but also, you know, now building homes and your portfolio is pretty awesome. So welcome guys. Jeff, we're in for a treat with these two. I mean, don't believe me. You could judge me afterwards, but
I have so many questions. It's like, you know, especially with the Tennessee stuff and all the stuff you're doing at Tampa. So you guys were from where? Ohio, you said, right?
We're from Ohio, yep.
So how long you been in the Tampa market?
8 years.
8 years, yeah.
8 years this summer.
So when you guys get to Tampa, so a lot of people listen to our show sometimes are either trying to figure out what to do with a team. Do I need a team? How do I expand a team? Or just do I fly solo, right? So when you get to Tampa, were you a team when you got there? Or did you just start from like...
We weren't even in the business.
Not even real estate, right?
No.
So how does that evolve in that quick of a time?
So we moved down because we've owned businesses forever. Yeah. He took a job for the first time ever. I think he started his business when he was 19. And so we moved down here for that job. And we really took the job just for us to be able to make the move. We knew we wanted to move to Tampa. And so we got down here, and a couple months after we got here, I became really good friends with my real estate agent, or our real estate agent that helped us. And Jason's like, I think you should do that. And I was like, oh my gosh, everybody's a realtor. Everybody's going to make money doing this. You know, I just completely blew it off, but he really encouraged me to do it. So I got my license, and Lana, who was our realtor, but was an incredible mentor to me, right? I wouldn't have had the success that I had if I didn't have her. And we kind of partnered up together, but I'm just competitive, and I got a taste of it in my first weekend. So she was a high producing agent, single agent. Yeah. And she was just telling me how she's so overwhelmed and this and that. And I'm brand new. I have no sphere. I know nobody. So I'm like, give me a shot at your leads. Like, give me one weekend to prove to you that I can help you. And I sold 5 houses my first weekend.
Get out.
No, I literally, and the funniest thing is I went out with a client, I met her in the morning, then I had a bunch of other clients, and then I had to meet that first client again later that night to do the contract. And she saw me, she goes, girl, you don't look like you did this morning. I was a hot mess.
Really? Hey, you know that meme where they say like real estate agent at 45 and we look like we're 85? It went from looking like 20 to looking like you're 50 because you sold.
She was like, you don't look good. Working with me. She's like, you okay?
Hey, well, you know, just because I know you guys and I want to kind of give Jeff a little story is like, there's so much more to their Ohio entrepreneurship story. They're like high school sweethearts from Ohio, right? I think I'm right. Like I listen. Like a lot of times people say I'm always busy and all that, but I think I listen to these stories. So can we go back to the car salesman story and the whole LeBron James story? Please.
I love the story.
Bring it out.
Oh my gosh, that's so funny. Yeah. So in a previous life, we owned a car dealership. And one of the things that we had a challenge of was down payments, right? And this is even spilled into housing, right? Sometimes people don't have enough down payment. So I like to get creative for down payments. So if somebody doesn't have the cash, that doesn't mean they don't have a down payment, right? They may have assets or something that would be worthwhile. So I would tell people, listen, what do you have? Like, what do you have of value that I can buy from you to give you the cash that you now have a down payment for the car, right? So I did all kinds of things from like, this was, when flat screens first came out, I did flat screens, I did motorcycles, ATVs, four-wheelers, dirt bikes, all this stuff.
I'm just imagining your garage, by the way.
Yeah,
Just
It was like,
I know. You should see the
whatever
stuff
new
coming
toy,
home,
right? And I got to the point where I'm like, I don't even want cash for a down payment. I want a new toy, right? So we were in Akron, which is where LeBron James is from. And one of his mentors at the time, this was when he was just coming out of high school, going into the pros. One of his mentors had all types of memorabilia, right? And he's like, listen, man, I need a car. And he was kind of like LeBron's agent at the time. And he's like, listen, I've got some shoes. I've got some jerseys, high school jerseys. I've got his McDonald's game worn jersey, autographed basketballs, all this stuff.
We had it all.
So I'm like, yeah, bring it in. Let's check it out. So I got it. And I'm like, yeah, I love it. Let's work it out. We worked out a price. I ended up acquiring all this memorabilia.
How old was LeBron at the time?
This was probably, LeBron would have been 21 or 22 at the time.
Was he already in the NBA?
Yeah, because he came straight out of high school and went into the NBA. Okay, so this was like his rookie year was 03. So this was probably right around that time where he was kind of going from high school to the pros, right?
It's the visionary of you of like, this guy's gonna go far, or maybe what if he makes it? Like bring his stuff in. I'll give you a little something. See what I can give you.
Right. Yeah. So I mean, in all reality, we took a risk on it, right? Because if he would have been a flop, that stuff would have been worth pretty much nothing. And obviously, it turned out okay, and his career took off, and the memorabilia took off, and then from there I've always had a passion for sports cards, so I went heavy into LeBron sports cards, and that worked out well.
I'm going to say he does have one of the rarest LeBron James collections in the world. So much so that a guy from, Marcus Lemonis from The Prophet.
Yeah.
One of the guys from his team, because he's in that world and has what is it called? Like an auction house.
They're invested in a sports memorabilia
They reached
platform,
out to him wanting his LeBron stuff to be in their vault. Like just
wait, but hold on. At the moment back then, you weren't like so excited about Marcus Lemonis. You're like, you did what?
Yeah.
No, this just happened like 6 months ago.
Yeah, the Marcus Lemonis stuff with The Prophet, the TV show The Prophet and all that, that's kind of happened more recently in the past few months where we've made that connection and seeing where we can take that. But it all kind of stems back to the sports memorabilia, right? A deal I made 20 years ago now, kind of opening doors in other opportunities. And we even took that into real estate. I remember.
I have to tell the story.
Okay.
So I was like, you need to tell me something. So he had a deal where it was going sideways because the lady of not having enough cash. She needed more of a down payment or something.
First time home buyer.
Yeah. And Jason's like, you got any assets? And she's like, I have these funeral plots that I think are worth some money. He buys funeral plots.
I mean, they're worth money, right? So I buy the funeral plot.
So all of a sudden I get this thing in the mail, some certified mail where we got these burial plots.
You're like, is there something you need to tell me?
Right.
So look at how creative you are. But going back to the LeBron thing, you did a good bet. And recently, those now LeBron Collection is in a vault where like celebrities send their stuff, right? You actually it's a real collection that's worth a lot of money. Yeah.
Like I've sold stuff to Gary V. And Gary V uses the same vault that I use as well. So there's a lot of big names in the alternative assets, right? I mean, you've got artwork, you've got sports memorabilia, cars, crypto,
now NFTs. Yeah.
NFTs.
Now with
NFTs.
So this is really cool where this is going with the alternative assets that people are willing to pay big bucks for.
Yeah.
I just thought that was funny. And I thought Jeff should know that. Because,
I would have never.
They're pretty awesome people. We're going to have a lot of people come on this show that think they're going to talk about all the same real estate stuff. Well, actually, not my friends who come on this show. We talk about how we're trading deals for sports cars and stuff. And bodies and plots and stuff.
Crazy stuff.
crazy stuff. No,
You gotta
Yeah.
be like, you gotta be like, you know my last name, right? Like my last name, Catalanotto. As soon as you say your last name,
Right.
it sounds like
I love
I
that.
took a golf cart in recently, right? I'm like, my kids need a golf cart. I had a renter that owed me some money, and he's like, hey, I got a brand new golf cart. I'm like, well, that's because you didn't pay rent. So let's go.
I love that. That is so crazy. I'm so excited. I love that I have creative financing friends. I know who to call when I need to make a deal happen. I'm like, dude, I'm not thinking outside the box. What do you think?
yeah. What can I get?
Right? All right,
Yeah.
Jeff, carry on. I'm sorry. I did.
No, it's awesome. I'm intrigued. So because I didn't realize, you guys do move so fast, right? You do so much. Like you got into real estate, you started, and then how does it evolve into like the team and where you are now? Like, where does it go?
Honestly, it kind of just took on a life of its own. That's something that we're kind of working through with our coach right now, kind of getting that vision in place because, I started, like I said, I kind of just went in with the expectation. If I did a couple deals here and there, it'd be, give me something to do, get me out and about.
Yeah.
And I got a little taste of it. I'm super competitive. So I went all in. And like I said, I had an incredible mentor friend that was helping me, but she retired a year after we worked together. She's like, I'm going to the beach. Her husband retired. She was older than I was. And so all of a sudden I'm like, okay, well now where do I go? Because I can't do this all on my own. Like, I think we ended up selling 66 homes that first year, but I couldn't have done that without her. She was really helping me. So I would say it was almost like we were a team.
Mm-hmm.
And then she's like, I think I want to retire. And Jason got licensed. And then that's when he kind of came into the picture. So that was just the two of us. And we were doing really well. And then we were going on.
Well, hold on. Let's back up because V, you're going to appreciate this on how competitive in the Zillow thing, right? So back before Zillow had their pricing, how they have it now, you used to just be able to go in and buy a zip code, right? And I'm like, well, shit, Jen and Lana, they have the zip code for our area, but there's one more spot left. So I'm going to buy it. And now we own the entire market, right? And then we started branching out. So literally every lead that came in, we're racing each other to pick up the phone first. Who's going to get that lead? Because we know it's coming to one of us.
With each other. Like, somewhere else.
Like, who can outsell the other one, right?
That is
so much trash. Like, I mean, in good fun, but we are so competitive.
Well, you say good fun, but there's that competitive nature sometimes. It might get a little like this. Like,
in the office, they would always laugh because they're like, you guys will cut each other. I
don't want to know what the conversations at home sound like. Okay. Yeah, I don't want to. I think of the movie Mr. and Mrs. Smith, right? Right now I'm thinking oh really? Like play you got that Zillow lead. And back then that's when people were like, the contracts were locked in. So people were like, oh, they were flexing that they had that zip code and no one could get into that zip code.
Right.
That went away with market-based pricing, but those were the good old days, right? And that was affordable.
Right. It was so affordable. And that's what I was like, for me, I didn't have a sphere. I didn't know anybody here. I barely even knew the neighborhoods. I got lost in my own neighborhood still. And so when I decided to do this, I was like, okay, if I'm opening a business, and I think that's owning our own business. We always thought about it like that. I was like, okay, I'm going to give myself this much money. I'm going to set this budget. And I went all in on online leads. And so I know some people hate on Zillow and they hate on that, but for me, that's what I needed to do to get started. I didn't have the sphere. I did get plugged in with like the kids in the community, but I wanted business now. And so it was a way for me to get business now. And to be honest, a lot of those people that I met through clients have become our friends. They've become my sphere here. Yeah. They are like family. I mean, they were at your birthday party. They're here at Christmas.
Well, let's talk about that, because I know you guys pretty intimately. And I know that, you guys have shared your journey. One of those, I think, Zillow leads at the time, which I'm hearing a lot of things, Jeff. I'm hearing you move into a new area, you partner up with the top producing agent. That top producing agent maybe want to retire out of the business. I don't know if you're taking notes on all this. This is where my head is going. Yep. And then, online leads can really help someone build a sphere, right? In a market that they don't know. There was one particular guy who called on what many would consider a crappy lot, right?
Yes. Oh, yeah.
Want to help. And that person ended up being what to you and taught you what that now you guys are doing what with.
So actually it was a short sale property, right? It was a short sale property that nobody wanted. And I was like, I'll take this, right?
We got the listing.
We got the listing. Yeah. So ended up, buyer came through that we had never met. And he ends up buying the house, right? And I see that the house just sits there for months because he told me right out of the gate, his plan was to buy it, rehab it, and flip it. And months go by, and I see nothing's going on. So I reach back out to him, and I'm like, hey man, I know you bought this to flip it, but nothing's going on. So what's the disconnect? And he's like, man, I'm super busy. At the time, he owned like 7 pizza franchises, a hotel, all kinds of stuff. And I'm like, hey, I got a guy that can get this ready for you, and I know I can sell it for X. Do you want me to take this over? And he's like, yeah, sure. So I do it. We flip it, makes a bunch of money. And here we end up becoming like best friends, right? So we met. It's interesting how you never know what one thing in your life can change everything, right? Because now he and I are like best friends, and we own a whole bunch of properties together and looking into other businesses now. We went on to coach our kids' football teams together, hang out on the weekends, stuff like this. And
his wife and I joke that we don't know how the two of them found each other because they're the same person. Like they, wow. It's kind of scary that there's 2 of them in this world.
But think about the opportunity that all came from a listing that nobody wanted, that I'm like, hey, I'm going to take this on. And then now I've met lifelong friends who then introduce you to other lifelong friends and other business opportunities.
And I will say they've changed our life tremendously with just, the amount of connections we've made through them. They've been in the area for a long time. And then just their friendships and just all the opportunities that they've presented us with.
You guys said also the knowledge, right? They bought hotels. Right. They were like investors that like develop properties. And, they didn't say that up front, but you never know who you're stereotyping because of their price point or what they're purchasing in their portfolio. And I want any agent that's listening to think about that. And this person, I think when we were talking about the opportunities in Puerto Rico, and I was telling you about some of the perks of buying hotels in Puerto Rico through the SBA. And I think you were the one who told me that through SBA, I forgot who it was, how they forgive the difference if the value goes down, and how he's very knowledgeable of hotel renovations. And it's just amazing how one, like you just said, one relationship can change it, but you haven't earned the right to know the value of what that relationship is until you get into the relationship.
Right. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And this resonates with me so much, because do you know how many times on a weekly basis I hear from even our own clients that we try and coach about, this was a crappy lead, or this was a crappy property, or it was just a crappy rental. Everything was like this negative spin on something. And yet they don't know the opportunity they could have met. If you had that attitude going in, that it was just a crappy lot or just a crappy, and you were that mentality, look how different your life would have been. Right.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It's so magical, that one thing you just said about perception and the right attitude going into everything. That's my nugget for today right there. You just gave it to me. And I appreciate that. But it's real life, right? We miss opportunities because we're not willing to be open-minded.
Right.
And it impacts people every day. So I love that story. That's my favorite.
And I love that he still walked, because we would sell a lot in that neighborhood, and he kept seeing the house, and then he cared enough about the client to be like, I know that this was his intention. Like, what happened? What went wrong? Like, how many people would drive past it and go, that guy screwed up, or maybe, like just kind of come up with their own story, but he didn't. He took the time to reach back out and be like, hey, what's happening? Like he cared. He genuinely cared.
Because the typical agent might just be, it's their problem, not mine. They're not doing anything with it. They just bought it. Who would think they'd resell it again? And they would just pass it by every day.
Yeah.
And you saw that opportunity to, let me check in with the person as a human being and see, hey, what's going on, man? Do you need help?
It reminds me of the old saying of all your friends were strangers at one point, right? When you think about that, 20 years ago, did you know half of your friends? Probably not. We didn't know V 10 years ago.
That's right. Nope. That's right. That's a great.
It's crazy. Yeah. How one person can totally change the trajectory of where, and again, obviously I'm sure you poured value into them, and I'm sure your friendship also reciprocated, and, it's a two-way street. But let's shift real quick. What's up with this Tennessee now passion that you have, and you got licensed out in Tennessee? What are you doing over there? You lumberjack, you?
Yeah. Right. So, it started actually with her dad. He went up there and bought a property, and he's like, hey, come check this out. They built a brand new cabin for short-term rental. It's in a Pigeon Forge, Gatlinburg submarket called Sevierville, which is super hot. As you know, we've got an excellent partner in Jay Combs up in that market as well. And that market's exploding. Short-term rentals have really taken off since COVID. And that was one of the markets that benefited greatly. So we've now shifted. Yeah, I know it's a secret, right?
Where's the bleep button? Because
no, actually, I didn't know it was one of the most highly visited tourism destinations in the world. Well, at least in the U.S.
Yeah, they had 20 million visitors in the Smokies just last year. So yeah, the building up there is going crazy. There's a lot going on. Luckily, we were able to buy a cabin with some of our friends. You know, one of the guys we were just talking about is in on that, and then we have another one under contract right now that we're closing on, and then we bought several lots. So we're looking at developing some more up there. But yes, I also did get licensed up there because it's like, hey, if I'm going to be spending time, right? It's either an hour and a half flight or a 10-hour drive to get from our house here to the cabin there. If I'm going to be spending time up there, how do we monetize that, right? And how do we capitalize on buying more investment property up there?
And was that so that's basically an Airbnb or Vrbo play out there?
Yeah, exactly. Yep, short-term rental. Yep.
So I mean that's a huge opportunity right now. So many people are, dabbling with or the thought of, and I think I've heard the number that the return, like if you could rent that one place out to a year-round rental, I think the return is like 4x or 5x on an Airbnb or a Vrbo type property.
It is. It's huge. It's a huge difference up there. I mean, realistically, to kind of go over your numbers there, I think we'd probably get $3,000 a month, and if we did just the typical rental, but on the short-term rental, we're going to do about 140,000 out of it.
Jesus, that's fantastic. And do you find, not that it's like this is like something like business speak here, but how do you find like a management place to take care of it 10 hours away? Is that you find your own resources or?
Yeah, so I bought it already existing. The first one was already up and running, and then we vetted them out, right? Just like anybody should do. And we own a management company here in Florida, so I knew the questions to ask. I helped guide them on some things when it came to marketing, which was great because they were super open-minded about it. And I interviewed some other companies, but ultimately we stayed with the one that it was already under management, and I had to make some changes to it, and it's doing great. But that's it. You got to vet them. You got to vet the management companies, make sure that they're properly marketing, guys. That's one of the biggest things I see, right? Everybody thinks they're marketing these properties right, and then go look at it from a consumer-facing standpoint, and you start asking some questions, right? And then the other big thing that I've adjusted is the pricing. I thought our pricing was super low. I raised our prices 3 times last year and once already this year, and we just keep renting, and I actually got pushback from the management company. They're like, I don't know. And I'm like, listen, why not try it, right? Let's scale the pricing so that 6 months from now it's higher. And if it doesn't rent in 4 months, we'll start dropping 3, 2, 1, right? Like, Let's scale that pricing up. And it's worked out, really well for us. Yeah.
And we had never been to that area until we went to my dad's cabin. And then the kids had a great time. We had a great time. And we're like, this is something that we could see wanting to spend more time here. So we, as our kids are getting older and we look at like what we want to do, I'm like, I really would like to spend some time here. So if we can acquire some properties now, rent them out, maybe we don't get to use it a lot now, but then when I'm looking towards my own retirement, that's something that maybe, we can spend more time there. And now it's not a huge expense that I'm like worried about later on in life.
Correct. From the financial standpoint. And I also think it's just good for the soul, right? Like I love the mountains. I love the beaches. There's things like that, especially in this industry, you guys know you can get burned out super quick, right? Sometimes you got to go unplug. And that's, if I'm not working, I try to use it as an unplug. He doesn't ever
unplug. I don't know what he's it's not even possible for him. We got licensed in Tennessee. So when I'm relaxing with the kids, she's like, I'm going to go check out this property. I'm going to go check out this lot.
But see, that is, and when it's in your blood, like I get the same feeling too, because it's hard for me to unplug. I have a place in the Adirondacks. I try and go to unplug, but I had to find some magical way to get some kind of Verizon signal so I could still get my text messages and do some things to have a connection. But you're right. People will burn out if you don't find some balance. And even if that looking at properties and driving around in a truck or to you is time away, that's time away because it's fun for you to not stress. So that's a really good point because I watched too many people burn out and not bounce back.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah. And that happens, I think, to a lot of high performers, right? I mean, we've seen it in all kinds of industries, but especially in our industry where you're basically on call 24/7, right? Between staff, team members, clients, things like that. I mean, I was getting text messages at 6:30 this morning from a client that wants to go see beach properties,
Yep. I've told many people publicly over my speaking time that I've burnt out in my real estate career. I crashed and burned hard once, and once kind of a close call. But to me, that burnout for me, and I tell people all the time, like people don't like to operate from fear. Fear is usually not a good thing. But in my world, fear is my motivator because in my mind, because I had that burnout and crashed and burned, in my head all the time is I say, I never, ever, ever want to be there again. I never want to be back in that space again. So that drives me every day from a fear mentality, but it turns it into a positive energy. So if you're listening and you're right. If you don't find balance, we could run this business 24/7 and never stop. It doesn't end.
And I think going to your point with that, like, and it's funny you bring up going back to the team thing. I just had this talk with John, our coach, on Tuesday because I'm kind of having a little bit, not like, just kind of feeling a little overwhelmed. I'm not going to lie. Like we have a lot going on and, we've got 3 kids and we've had some personal things happen this year. And I'm just like, I'm feeling this, like he called me on Tuesday for our call and he's like, what we got going on? I'm like, honestly, I don't know. Like I'm a shit show right now. Like, I don't know if I'm coming or going or what's happening. And he, he took me back and we were talking through some of that, but going back to the team, our team kind of just evolved, right? We didn't have this plan, and not saying that you have to like overly plan, but again, our solution at the time when we were feeling burnout because we were hitting capacity was let's start a team. And I think so many people think that that's the natural progression. And I didn't really explore my options. We just, out of desperation, we were going on a cruise and we're like, oh crap, it's only the 2 of us. We're going to have no access to our phones. What do we do? There was this new kid sitting in the office every day. He was a new agent. He's sitting there on the phones working every day. And we're like, let's ask him to cover all of our business for us. I mean, that's how like we were just winging it.
Yeah.
And I remember our broker at the time, Kendall, was like, he's brand new. And I'm like, well, it can't be worse than nobody answering the phone. So let's give him
a really good way of looking at it. That's
and so we're like, whatever, like we'll just cover it. And we came back and I'm like, what'd you think? And he was like, he had this like look on his face, like, but he loved it. And he was like, that was nuts. He's like, I'm not going to lie. There were times I was drinking at night because I didn't know what to do. Well, I want to do this. I want to do this.
Right. You were new at one point. You sold 5 houses in one day.
Somebody gave me a shot kind of the same way. Like
exactly. And Jason just said it. At one point, all your current friends were strangers. We were all new at one time. Right. So you got to start somewhere. I throw them I'm like, just go. You got this. People say to me like, how did you get out of production? And, like, how did you trust someone with your business? I was like, we all had to start somewhere.
Right.
We all had to learn at some point. So I love that you pour into people.
But yeah, so he ended up kind of asking us to be a team. He was like, I want to work with you guys. And we're like, cool, let's do this. But again, it was no plan. It kind of stumbled into our laps. And so I think that that's kind of been our biggest challenge is like realizing that, we needed more admin and things like that before we started bringing people. We just kind of just did it every way backwards that you could possibly do. So now we're like, okay, let's fix this. So we're starting to build it the right way. But, there's a lot of pressure that comes from being a team leader. I'm sure you understand, Veronica. Like it's, we take it very serious when somebody trusts us with their future, with their career.
Yeah.
And I take on a lot of that weight of that. And so I'm trying to learn to,
You made this young man, though, feel very validated, feel very meaningful in the business, feel what it feels like to start to have success. So this probably, although sticker shock to that weekend, probably for him, you gave him a taste of what it really is that he could not find on his own just yet. Yeah. So you probably empowered him in a really big way very quickly. Very quickly.
I have a question. I have 2 questions, actually. I'll shoot rapid fire because I know we have a timeline and Jeff is the one that keeps us in check here. Number 1 is how different is selling real estate in Tennessee than Florida? Is there a difference? Is it like you feel like you're going into some, like when I go to Puerto Rico, I feel like I'm going into a time capsule, but that's my safe space. And eventually I want to get licensed there. Like, is there a difference, different vibe or?
I will say it's a slower pace, right? Okay. Like everything in Tennessee is a little bit of a slower pace. The market though is still hot. So we run into the same challenges. We run into the same challenges of multiple offers, lack of inventory. Probably the biggest difference is in our area of suburb, we're in a suburb of Tampa, everything's a master plan community, right? So I can go to a neighborhood and if there's 5 houses for sale, I can get to all 5 houses in 5 minutes. When you're talking about going from mountain to mountain to mountain, it may be an hour drive to get to that next house, but it's really only like 10 miles away or 5 miles away, right? But so the terrain makes it a little more time consuming, but the market supply and demand issues are very similar.
You had said something to me about like, and over there, it's kind of like that small town funding, like the banks over there know the builder, everybody knows each other kind of style. So maybe not as much as the big box broker type of deals, more it's like you go down to the local bank and they know the builder and I don't know.
It's definitely a good old, like I shouldn't say good old, but it's very connected. Very connected. All the agents are very connected.
And I learned that right out of the gate. And honestly, a lot of the stuff that we bought off market, even the one I've got pending right now, off market, right? Wow. It's more who you know up there than anything else.
But I'm seeing that happen in our market though, too. You know, with inventory issues, a lot of deals, we're seeing a lot of our like off market deals happen, right? We have, I think going back to having a good reputation in the area and who you want to work with, I'll have people message me, hey girl, I'm getting this listing, or you have anything like this coming up. And so there's a lot of communication between agents happening behind the scenes.
NAR doesn't want us to do that.
Sorry, not happening.
I'm just joking. One last question, at least from my end. And I could talk to them for hours because they're just so full of life is, I think you guys are our first husband and wife couple coming on the show. How challenging is it to work together with your spouse?
I mean, for her, it's got to be super easy, right?
He tells me how perfect he is and how lucky I am to be married to him every day. I get that pep talk. I will say the thing is we've worked together for a very long time. Yeah. So he opened his first business in 19. At like 22, we started working together, 22, 23. So we've kind of learned that we have different strengths. And so we kind of approach things very differently. Like he loves the investor side of things. He loves the property management side of things. I have no desire to do that. I love the warm and fuzzy with the team and the people and my clients. So we kind of stay in our own lanes. And I used to always hate when people say that because, but I should say we've learned to respect each other's differences because he's definitely a visionary and I'm an integrator type personality. So he used to call me his dream killer all the time. He has all these ideas and I would like want to have like perfect example. I had a lunch with him and James, not to go completely squirrel here, but James Adams. And it was literally about what we were going to be doing for like our next team meeting. And these two, by the time I never even got the details on the team meeting, they were talking about having a coaching company later. How we went from
NFTs to sports cards to coaching. It was just crazy.
I'm like the one running.
Dream big, those big beehives.
Dream killer.
Exactly.
Dream killer.
But we need those dream killers in our life to bring us back to reality, right? They're like,
yes.
Can we finish this project over here?
Yeah,
right. In Rocket Fuel, that book, we listened to it on Audible. Rocket Fuel, I think, helped me realize I got to stop building the plane as I fly it. And sometimes it's probably better to build it ahead of time and then go fly it, which is ultimately what Jen's trying to do, right? She's trying to like, hey, it's a lot easier when you plan out things in a business and you do it the right way than you just run and you're playing catch up every day.
Well, it's not even so much just run and play catch up. It's like you'll get this idea and then like a week later realize you really didn't want to do that. It was just kind of fun.
I wanted to do it that week.
It was a fun idea while it was an idea that imagining, right? But then you're like, oh, I got to put legs on this and I have to think about this and this might not be a good idea. Eric says that to me. He says, and Eric is my integrator, my COO. You guys have met him. Very, very smart person. He was on the show, right, Jeff? Right?
Yeah.
He was on the show. He says, it's physically impossible to fly a plane while you're building it. And I'm like, guess who? And then right, it's like scientifically proven, Veronica. And I'm like, like, so it is really good to have someone that brings you back to reality. But we need the visionaries in our world, right? Because we are not afraid to reimagine. And that's what this show's about, right? Rethinking, reimagining, but we need the integrators in our world. And I'm glad you brought up the book Rocket Fuel, because if you are looking to build your business and take it to the next level, like I built a real estate business on straight grit and heart for a long time. And then I couldn't move it to the next level because it was lacking certain pillars of the business that would no longer allow it to grow until I actually started putting legs on where it actually needed like foundational support, like, again, systems, measurement. And I was like, wait, we got to do all that boring stuff. Yes. And then once we did that, my business took off to a completely different level. And a lot of you guys have witnessed that growth.
And I think that
what happened? I got an integrator,
Yeah.
And I think the beautiful thing about that is it made us start to see our differences, not as our differences, but as each other's superpowers. Mm-hmm. Now I've learned to embrace his ideas. And he, when I say, wait, he doesn't see it as I'm killing his dreams. He's like, oh, okay, we need to sit here and evaluate this because this is messing up something that she already has in place. So as for husband and wife teams, I definitely think, anybody who's looking to build a team, I think you should read that book, but especially for husband and wife teams, because it's helped us, keep those little things in compartments and not have it spill in. Because you got two Italians, when we spill into each other's world, the whole world's going to find out about it. So it helped us a lot.
Yeah.
So I think to wrap this into a bow with this, because Jason, I'm like you. I am the keep running. A yin and a yang in the business, and even if it's not your spouse, is super important, because if you miss one of them, and I have a yang in my life too. My wife is I'm the yang. She's the same thing. She's the executor. I'm the visionary. Like, let's keep running. But you miss one of those components, either the visionary just flies off the chart with no execution, or the one who's not visionary just kind of stays static and always executing but never growing. So I think it's such a perfect match. And I think in this world, even if you're a solopreneur, you find that other partner that is the other piece that you're missing if you don't have it, because it's powerful together. It really is powerful together. You don't see it sometimes that way at the dinner table. Trust me. Yeah. I know that. But
guys, I will say this 100%, not because you guys are on the show, has been one of my funnest episodes so far. And everyone else has been amazing too. But like, you guys have definitely brought a lot of humor, a lot of fun, a lot of color to this show today. Jeff, I don't know about you, but how awesome have they been?
I look forward to getting to Tampa and having a beer and hanging out with you guys.
Yeah, sounds good. Yeah.
Tampa or the Smoky Mountains, right?
That's right. Yeah, for sure.
I'm a country boy at heart too, so I may be tapping into that a little bit too. So we'll see how that goes.
Hey,
thank you for having us, guys.
Yeah, thank you guys so much.
We're gonna have some amazing guests, and a lot of them who are friends, and others who are strangers today and will become friends, as Jason just kind of left us with that inspiration. But RELaunch Live podcast, thanks for tuning in, a place where you can rethink, reimagine, and be re-inspired. Thank you, Jen and Jason. And again, to my amazing co-host, Jeff Lobb. This has been one of my favorites. We'll see you guys next time on RELaunch Live.
Bye.
See you guys.
Yeah.
You've been listening to the RELaunch Live podcast, helping you rethink, reimagine, and be re-inspired in your life and business. Make sure to like, rate, and review the show. Find the show on Apple, Google Play, Spotify, and YouTube. See you next time.